What's up, everybody? Welcome to Marvelous Statues. As always, I'm George, and today I bring you the spoils of my adventure to the land of Pandora at Disney's Animal Kingdom in Orlando. This is the review of the exclusive statues for Neytiri and Jake Sully on Banshee. All right, so as I stated before, I purchased these statues at the Land of Pandora in Disney's Animal Kingdom in Orlando. Now, usually I go into a backstory for the characters that I'm doing a review on, but seeing as Avatar is such a widely known movie, everybody seems to know about this, I'm just gonna talk to you a little bit about the Land of Pandora at Disney. First, I think that the artisans and sculptors and other artists that went into the whole development of that land should be commended. I mean, they really make you feel that you are on another world when you go in there. Got to see the slow river ride, which I thought was really pretty. Had lots of nice animals, and the Na'vi were there, plants, things like that, to make you, to just basically familiarize those who don't know anything about Avatar with the movie, which I thought was pretty cool. That being said, it's slow ride, kind of like It's a Small World. Definitely something that I would do once when I go there, but not something that I would wait on an hour wait the time to get in. I heard that the other ride that they have going on, the flight simulator, they call it the Flight of Passage, was really cool. And I wish I could have gotten to do that, but the line was like 2 hours long by the time I ended up out of the first ride, so wasn't able to do that. Have to do that on another trip. So that being said, let's now that we know where I got these from, let's get the box art up here. I'll show you what that looks like, and then we'll get into this review. All right, guys, so this is the box art for the statues. As you can see, you know, the boxes show pretty much what the statue looks like. That's the style of art that they got going on here. In the background, there's a watermark of Pandora, so you can see what the land looks like. It doesn't exactly say who made the statues. It says that it was made by Alpha Centauri Expeditions, which is the company that charters expeditions to the different worlds in the Avatar universe. It does tell you the size of the statue, even though it doesn't tell you the scale. So Neytiri stands about 14 inches tall, and Jake here stands 8.8 inches tall and is about 13 inches wide. On the back of the boxes is a brief description of, you know, who the different characters are, and a nice scene from the movie, which is pretty cool. And that's about it. That's what the box art looks like. I'm going to take and get the statues back here on the Lazy Susans, and we can get into that review. All right, so now we got the statues back here on the Lazy Susan. I actually had to borrow my wife's Lazy Susan here so I can get this one spinning. Feel like a DJ. Jigga, jigga, yeah. Anyway, all right, so the bases for both of these statues are sculpted pretty decently. They're not outstanding, but you know, for the price point, it's not too bad. Let's start with Neytiri. The sculpt of the base has some nice textures going on, although the texture is pretty much the same all the way through, which doesn't really distinguish itself in any kind of way as far as what the ground looks like. It just looks like some random alien floor. It does have these horned looking things, which look pretty nice, although the tone of it is very similar to the skin, so it doesn't really distinguish itself again as to what it is. Onto the sculpt for Neytiri. I think the anatomy of her is on point. It looks just like how she did in the movie. There's no texture on the skin, so since there's no texture, you know, it looks very smooth, and with the paint app, it almost resembles porcelain, very shiny, so that's kind of a letdown for me. The clothing and the armor that she has on does have texture, which gives it some kind of distinguishment from the rest of the statue, which I think that's pretty good. The garments that she has here, like the necklace, there's no real detail on the feathers, so you know, you really can't tell what that is. You know, it could be, it looks like some big peppers that she has right around her neck, so maybe she's gonna go make a salsa verde or something. I don't know. You know, so it just doesn't read right. The bracer here does have some nice texture, which, you know, that's pretty good. The bow is a nice addition to it. you know, seeing that that's her primary weapon in the movie. So I think that, you know, adds to the character. You know, it looks pretty good. The string that they have on the front is the only part of it that is a mixed media. The statue itself is made of resin, so you know it does feel nice and weighty, which is pretty good. The hair is sculpted extremely well. I really like what they did there. Lots of nice detail going on, and I think that's probably the best looking part of the whole statue for Neytiri. Her face doesn't read too much like Neytiri from the movie. It doesn't look like her, so that was kind of let down there. All right, so let's move on to Jake. So Jake, in contrast with Neytiri, this one was done, in my opinion, much better, even though it is a smaller looking statue. The base has some nice texture, and you know, to distinguish the foliage from the lower part of the rock, it looks like one of the floating rocks of Pandora, which I thought is pretty cool. You know, again, it has these horn looking things all around it, which gives it a nice tie-in to this statue, which I think is also a pretty good job. The skin on the Banshee has texture throughout, which I think is a great touch. It definitely looks very nice when you get to see it up close. The decision to use translucent resin here on the wingtips, I think, was a great idea. Gives it a nice translucency that you can put lights, you know, through it, and you can see through that, which I think is very cool. The only part that I think on the Banshee that may be kind of lacking is over here on the teeth. But again, it's a small looking head, so I'm pretty sure that's the reason why you don't have too much detail there, but I think it would have been nicer to see a little more detail there in the gums and in the teeth. The rib cage here on the bottom is pretty cool. You know, gives it something nice and interesting to look at there on the bottom instead of just having smooth skin all the way through. Jake himself doesn't have a lot of detail, but because he's so small, you know, I can forgive it from that. The only problems I have here with Jake is right where the arm meets this arm bracer. It looks like there's a separation there. It doesn't seem like the arm is passing through the bracer. It seems like it's separated itself from the bracer. It's like it was glued afterwards, which I think that looks kind of horrible in my opinion. The face, oddly enough, for it being this small, actually looks like the character. So I think that is pretty cool. And then they did a good job with the hair, just like they did with Neytiri over here. So very good. So overall, in my opinion, when it comes to the sculpts of these statues, I feel that they're, you know, they're okay. They're average, with Jake being the better of the two. So yeah, that's where I'm at with that. All right, so with the paint application on these statues, I feel that they're lacking, with Jake being the better of the two. Both of them have some issues with bleeding and some paint overspray, which I think makes it look kind of like bad quality. But you know, Jake definitely is the winner here when it comes to the two of them. So let's start with Neytiri. The base for Neytiri, I think, is actually the best part of this whole paint job that they have going on with her. I think that they did a pretty good job with the tones going on there. You know, they have, you know, greens, and they got this brown-looking vine, some nice fades going on there, and then these horns are painted pretty nice. They have a nice gloss to it, which distinguishes itself from the base pretty well, which is pretty cool. But that's, I think, where it kind of stops. With Neytiri herself, I think the paint is horrible. First off, the blue is all one flat blue. There's no shading whatsoever, and it's very glossy. So it really gives the impression of a porcelain doll, and you know, that kind of doesn't flatter her. The actual paint of the armament and the clothing bleeds into the blue, which also kind of sucks. There is some kind of shading there going on here in the center part of the dress here, and then the arm bracer, which I think that was pretty good. But then, you know, in the necklace, they're just all solid colors. So, you know, I think that's pretty bad. Worst part of the paint here is that all of these markings, or tattoos, if you want to call them tattoos, are stickers. And I think that was just really bad idea. I don't know why they decided to do that. What makes it worse is that not only is it a sticker, but you know, you can see the lines where the sticker, they didn't bother to hide it. So if you get real close, you can see lines in the body. And then because they added stickers in the face, on mine at least, the application of the sticker, there's an actual area where it kind of overlaps. So there's a line in her face, which sucks. You know, I didn't like that at all. The eyes themselves, you know, the eyelashes are painted on, and then the eyes just look weird, in my opinion. I really don't like what they did there. The hair is painted, you know, one flat color. I think the texturing of the hair is actually what saves it. But all of the little garments that she has in her hair are all just flat colors, and it's very hard to distinguish what they are. So it just doesn't look good. So yeah, I'm not really happy with what they did here with the paint job on Neytiri. Now, for Jake, on the other hand, I think they did a pretty decent job with the paint. The base, I think, is painted pretty decently. You know, you do have some variations in colors in the foliage and then those blue horns. I think they could have put more color in on the rock section. They only have one flat color going on there, which doesn't really complement the textures all that well. So I think they could have done a little bit better there. The Banshee itself, I think, is painted extremely well. Unlike Neytiri, all of these little tattoo areas, like I'm calling it, are actually all painted on, which I think is perfect. You know, there's no area where you can see any kind of stickers, and there's nice variation in color. You know, the skin has these purple tones going into that light blue. Even the clear resin that they got going on here has some paint in it, so that when the light hits it, it actually shines a different color through it, which I think is very good. The only part of the Banshee that I think could have used a little bit more touch is in the mouth area. Again, I feel that the gums don't have anything to distinguish itself. You know, it just looks like a flat color of white with black teeth. And then the tongue, you know, it's almost the same color as the rest of the skin, so not really feeling that either. It does have more gloss than the rest of it, so I think that's kind of a good plus, but I think I wish it would have been a different color. Around the mouth, though, I love this fade that they got going on where the skin is stretching. I think they did that great. I almost thought that with the light, that actually the light was passing through it, but it's just the way they painted it, which I think they did a great job. Same thing with the rib cage area here and in the under area of the wing. You know, they have this fade going on, which I think is great, you know, just like what you would expect to see like in a reptile, which I think is a really nice touch. I think they did a bang out job here with the paint work on the Banshee, so, you know, good work there. With Jake, you know, I don't expect there to be much color because, again, he's very small. At this distance, you know, you wouldn't be able to see all of that detail, so I could forgive that there's no fades in the skin tones. But in this one, all of his skin tattoos, they're actually all painted on, which, you know, is good. I think they should have did that with Neytiri. I don't know why they decided not to do that. The only part that this is, you know, that where it suffers here is probably the worst part of the paint job here on the Banshee is Jake's garments. The colors bleed. The blue almost fades into the underpants here, so you can't really tell that they're actually there. I think they're supposed to be green, but the blue kind of burns into it. And then there's some areas where the browns on the actual garments bleed into the blue. So that was kind of a downer, but not anything that breaks it too much. You know, at a distance when you're looking at it, like from where I'm standing right here, you can't see it. You actually got to be on it to really visibly tell that that's there. So overall, I think the paint application on Neytiri is horrible, and the one on Jake is average, very good. Average to very good, actually. So that's my thoughts on the paint. All right, so the design of these statues I feel is also about average. I think that, again, Jake is the winner. I feel that the overall design of having this, you know, dynamic looking pose definitely gives it more character. The other added plus to this design is that they chose to add the Banshee, which this is the first statue to ever feature the Banshee, which I think that is a very cool feature of this particular sculpt. And, you know, it's very interesting to look at. Neytiri has more of a museum pose. Doesn't look bad, but, you know, it's basic, so it's nothing to that makes you want to keep staring at it. One of the biggest problems that both of these statues suffer from is wobbling. This really doesn't sit well in here. This one too. Neytiri suffers from it more than Jake does, so I think that it could use some improvement. Both of these statues are made of solid resin and feel very weighty when you have them in your hands. So they do have a good feeling of quality, which I think that is probably the biggest plus for these statues. Overall, as far as design goes, I feel that it's about average for both of these. All right, so my final thoughts on these statues. So I feel that I bought these statues, first of all, because in the store, the prototypes looked way better, I think, than the final results, especially with Neytiri. I think Jake was actually pretty much on par with what I saw in the store. They're nice. They're not, outstanding looking statues, but, for the price point, not too bad. I think for that particular price point, if Kotobukiya had their hands on these, they would have done a better job. In terms of, would I recommend these statues? If you're the fan of Pandora and fan of Avatar, and you got to have everything Avatar, then, these things are for you. This will work for you. If you are a fan of, Disney statues and you got to collect the latest and greatest that they come out with, that these are the statues that commemorate the opening of Pandora, so that would be definitely a reason to buy them. So if you're that particular collector, then these statues are for you. If you're somebody like me who likes highly detailed statues, then these probably aren't the ones that you want to get. I would say, Jake would be the one at least that you would pick up. You could pass on Neytiri. Yeah, that definitely would be a way I would go with it. As for me, I actually have a friend who was one of the painters at the Land of Pandora, so I'm going to send Neytiri off to him to get repainted. She really needs a new paint job. Jake, I'm actually pretty happy with, so, that I feel that it really wasn't that bad of a buy for the price point that it was. So, if I had to give a recommendation, I would say that if you were going to pick up one of these, definitely get Jake. All right, guys, so that's my show. I hope you found this fun and informative. If you were on the fence of getting these statues, I hope I helped you make a decision. If you ever feel like chatting, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Marvelous Statues is always looking for some more group members, so if you want to join the group, I left the links below for all of that. I got more unboxings, more statue reviews, and more news on the way, so stay tuned. And until then, see you next time.